Hi, my name is Natalia, and today I want to talk about my beginner plants, or I guess you could call them my gateway plants. So my first plant is Crown of Thorns. So one of the things that I like about Crown of Thorns is the cute little pink flowers that it has on it, and it's all year round that it has these flowers, which is hard to find for an indoor plant. I'd say a con for the Crown of Thorns is that it actually does have a lot of thorns on it, so you have to be careful when you're handling it. I actually just recently learned a fun fact that it's called Crown of Thorns because legend has it that when Jesus was crucified, that's what they made his crown with. So, interesting tidbit. A lesson that I learned with it was a lot about lighting, I guess, because when I first got it, I think when you're a beginner, you kind of see a cute, pretty plant and you just think, oh, I'll just bring this home and put it in that corner, it'll work. And you don't really think too much about, is it actually gonna meet the plant's needs? And so I remember moving that plant around a lot at the beginning because I could tell it was getting a little unhappy at times and losing some of its leaves. So I still do have my original Crown of Thorns, but since the new house that I moved into, it actually had some Crown of Thorns already planted on the side of the house. So when we moved in, I ended up just planting it outside with the rest of its plant family. The next plant I want to talk about is corn plant. So that one I remember buying at IKEA a long time ago. And one of the reasons I really like it is because it has like a tropical feel to it, and it's pretty tall too. So sometimes you're looking for like a taller plant in a corner and you don't want to have a stand or whatnot. And so corn plant's pretty good for that as a house plant. So a lesson I learned with my corn plant is about air conditioning. I didn't realize that my plant was starting to look kind of like droopy and upset, and I couldn't figure out what was going on because it had been fine for so long and it's so low maintenance normally. And then finally I realized that when the air conditioning was turning on, the vent was facing directly towards it, and so it was getting upset with the cold air hitting it. So I just changed the location that the vent was flowing, and then it was fine again. Actually, I learned another lesson too just recently about the lighting for it too, because I had it in a corner and it was doing perfectly fine and actually did pretty well there. But it had lost some of the stripes on the leaves, some of the variegation, and I recently moved it to a new location, and it's closer to it. It's in front of a window, and now it's growing new leaves, and also it's gained the stripe on the leaves again. So the next plant I'd like to talk about is Lucky Bamboo. Lucky Bamboo is definitely a good beginner plant. It's really low maintenance because it's just, at least for mine, it was just placed in water with stones, and that was it. And every, week or so, I'd change out the water, and that's all you had to do basically for years and years. That was it. And it's actually pretty tolerant of different lighting too. I found out recently that there's one at my office in an area where there's completely no light besides fluorescent lighting, so pretty cool, and it looks really healthy. Lucky Bamboo was probably my first plant that I loved the most for some reason or another. I think just because it was so easy. When I first moved to my new house, I remember carrying it on my lap in the moving truck to come here and everything just to make sure it was okay. And it was doing really well in its new home. And then once I started getting more plants and learning more about plants, I got into a stage where I was learning about fertilizer. I started fertilizing all of my plants and seeing how they were really improving, and it was great. I was excited, and so I decided to add a little fertilizer into my Lucky Bamboo water container. Yeah, don't do that. I learned shortly after, once it started looking kind of upset, that you don't need to do that because they don't really need fertilizer very often, and I'm sure I gave it way more than it ever would have needed. So it stayed alive, but it looked pretty funky. And so in the end, I decided to move it outside with the rest of the bamboo that we had growing on the side of the house. And then recently I got rid of all of the bamboo and didn't think about it until now that that means I also got rid of the lucky bamboo. And a fun fact from my lucky bamboo is now whenever unfortunate events happen to my boyfriend and I, he claims it's because we no longer have the lucky bamboo. So the next plant I'd like to talk about is the snake plant. That's also called mother-in-law's tongue. I don't know why it's called that. So I actually have one right here. I'm gonna move it over a little bit. So this was one of my first plants, of course, as well. And I'm honestly so surprised that it still looks in perfect condition. It's definitely a great beginner plant because it can tolerate some neglect. It can tolerate you not really knowing where to put it. It can tolerate low light, which a lot of plants can't. So if you're unsure of what to put in a certain spot, this is one of the good ones to start with if you don't think it's going to receive enough light. So a lot of plants, as you're kind of learning about them or putting them in new places, they will have to acclimate, and sometimes they'll get little brown edges, or especially from like overwatering and underwatering too. And I don't know, I'm just really impressed that the snake plant still looks completely normal. It almost looks fake, the fact that it doesn't have anything going on with it. I guess it has a couple little cut edges here, but that looks like something that's just always been there. But yeah, I really definitely recommend snake plant. Other pros about it is its architectural appearance too. And it's just very easygoing and chill. And I'd say a lesson I learned about with the snake plant is, I read a lot about plants to try to make sure that I'm treating them correctly, but sometimes you can kind of bend the rules a little bit. For example, not that I recommend this, but typically when you have, really for any plant, you want it in a container that has a hole at the bottom so that it can drain out, because a lot of the issue with plants is root rot, when you overwater your plants and then basically the roots go bad and it kills the plant. So I'm actually breaking the rule with this container here. There's no hole at the bottom, but since snake plant is so easygoing and doesn't need a whole lot of water, I just water it a little bit every week, every couple of weeks, and it's been totally fine. I think the key is that I definitely don't overwater it, otherwise I'd have that same issue. So ever since I moved into this house 2 years ago, this snake plant has lived happily on the TV stand. It's pretty close to a window, but it's getting indirect light the whole time. Those are all the plants that I wanted to talk about today. They're my first 4 plants that I ever had. I do recommend them all as beginners. There are other plants that I would also recommend as beginners that I'd like to talk about next time. Thanks for watching.